Welcome to my video. So, first let's address the elephant in the room. Well, actually there are two elephants in the room. One, it's been a while since I posted, so I really appreciate you being here. I also appreciate those of you who subscribed in the last few days. You know, I'm not dead, retired, or anything like that. I just got finished with finals a week ago, and then after finals was just just kind of recouping. That's the word, right? Yeah, just kind of recouping. And also, I'm in a different environment. Where am I? I'm at my grandma and aunt's house in Houston. And so I just decided to go to Houston for a few days, just see family and just kind of, just relax after having been stuck in Waco, just with finals and stuff like that. And so that's where I'm at. Probably just for this video. Maybe another if I decide to record another one, but And yeah, so this video is going to be a game review. It's between two 900 rated players just submitted to me from my club on chess.com. It's called Daniel Gale's Gang, I think. And so yeah, you're welcome to join that or also my Discord. I'll try to put links in the description. And I am accepting game analysis submissions, just looking for stuff to post onto YouTube. So, if you have any like that, have any interesting, instructive, wild, crazy, whatever games, I would love to see them. And so, yeah, I thought this was very instructive. Some good, there were some great moves played, but also some instructive mistakes. So, with that said, let's get to the chess. Alright, guys, let's take a look at this game. So, the game started with d4, knight f6, knight c3, and bishop f4. So, this is called the Jobava London, in case you're not familiar with it. As most of you probably know, the regular London is when you go bishop f4 and generally knight f3, and then, you're taught to do e3, c3, bishop d3, yada, yada, yada. So the Jobava London's a little bit different because you commit the knight to c3 rather than leaving it on the b1 square so that you might play c3 later. And from my understanding, it's a little bit more aggressive. One, because you could be preparing an e4 break, or not break technically, but just an e4 expansion in the center. And also there are variations. I think they're more with d4, d5 variations, but there are a lot of variations where the knight can just come to b5, and it's almost like a fry liver attack, but on the other side. And it's actually sound because it forces black to play knight a6, and then you just have a comfortable position. Knight a6 would defend the c7 pawn. But if you play knight b5 now, then there would be d6 to block the bishop. So just a little anecdote. And if you want to look more into the Jobava London, I'd highly encourage you to do your own research. And so black played the move bishop g7. And here, white played the first instructive mistake, in my opinion. So they played bishop e5. Oh, shoot, I forgot my annotations, but it's fine. Yeah, they played bishop e5 and then took. So, what's wrong with that variation? One, you break one of the opening principles, which is you don't want to move the same piece over and over if it's already been developed, because you're essentially wasting time while black gets to just complete their development. They play two useful moves, g6, bishop g7. And also, trading the dark squared bishop is dubious, because what's going to happen is once you trade, then your opponent has what's called an unopposed dark squared bishop. So their bishop now cannot be challenged by your bishop, and that can be very useful. So black is able to pull off moves like c5, knight c6, queen b6. What do all those moves have in common? They attack the d4 pawn, but more importantly, they placate to the strength of the dark squared bishop. And especially if you intend to castle that way, then it can be very useful for black. So you don't really want to trade, especially don't go out of your way to trade, moving the same piece over and over just to trade. There are exceptions, if there's a bishop here, sometimes you can put the knight there. But that's normally different because you're attacking the bishop. But anyway, so knight f3 was played, and here queen d3, which is alright, but I'd probably rather put the queen on d2 so that I can castle. Brain fart. You can castle either way, but I'd rather have the queen on d2 so that I'm maybe eyeing the h6 square and a potential kingside attack. Whereas d3 really has no influence on the king side because this g6 pawn is blocking it. So knight c6 was played, castle's queenside, bishop f5. And here white can play e4, just tempoing the bishop, but they missed it, that's fine. Queen d2, here a6 was played. And here white played the move d5, which I'm not going to heavily criticize, but it does open up this bishop, which is worth noting. And after knight b4, here white played the move knight d4. Black played a mistake, in my opinion. Remember how I talked about this unopposed dark square bishop and how strong it could be on that diagonal if black played the correct, a series of moves to apply pressure? Well, they traded the knight. And after queen takes, your dark square bishop is just gone. And also, now there's going to be pressure on your end of the board. Because once again, all your kingside pawns are on light squares, which means that your dark squares are extremely vulnerable. So the queen could come in. Well, you're not going to sacrifice or anything, but the queen is occupying those squares. You could use h4, h5 to pry open the h file. There are a lot of ideas. Now, you might be thinking, which I actually thought initially, well, after bishop takes, queen takes, what if I just take the pawn with either the knight or bishop? It's hanging. Well, if you play bishop takes, you actually just take the knight, and then materialistically, you're doing fine. Funnily enough, you actually don't have to capture. You can actually just even play h4 because the bishop's trapped either way. But even if you do recapture, you win 2 minors for a rook and a pawn, which is a good material imbalance. And if knight takes, I believe, the move is queen h4. And you're actually threatening g4 to attack the bishop, which is responsible for the knight. Any of the knight moves, I believe, I think e4 here even is good. And you just have compensation for the pawn. Not good for black. It's just not good to trade off that bishop. Very rarely, if you have g6, bishop g7 incorporated, very rarely is it good to trade. Sometimes in the Banco or Benoni, I'll see bishop all the way from g7 takes c3. You just don't want to do that unless there's some tactical justification, of course. So bishop takes, queen takes, some more moves were played. Here a3, knight a6, e3, and then bishop takes a6, rook takes, and here white played e4, c5, queen to c4. Now, here is the perception. The perception is that, oh no, the rook is attacked, and the bishop's attacked. I'm just losing a piece. Well, you have one way to save them both. So, black to play. How do you save your material? Well, the correct move, if you can move one of the pieces, we'll move the piece that's attacked by the lesser valuable piece. Because if you let me, I'm just going to take your bishop, and I'm fine giving up my pawn. So, play bishop c8. Bishop c8 would have been a good move to both move the bishop and protect the rook. Right. White is still better because of the absence of the dark square bishop and just an overall better position. Bishop c8 would be undeveloping, but that would have been way better than what happened, which is just losing the piece after bishop e6. Sorry, the rook. They lost the rook after bishop e6. Okay, so white's up a rook. Let's see how they finish it off. f5, e takes, rook takes f5, rook e1, queen e2. I like that, actually, just trying to stack up the pressure on the e file. It's a retreating move. It seems like a less active square than a6, but it's all for the greater good. d5, queen takes e7, queen b6. Obviously, you don't really want to trade because you're down material, and then the rooks and all the pieces just start to come to life. So trading is just not desirable. Queen b6. And here white played this move, knight takes d5, which sacrifices a piece, but it only works if you see the correct continuation, which is actually pretty difficult to see. And apparently white didn't see it as well. Maybe they thought they had queen e8, but realized that, there's rook f8, which is what happened in the game, by the way. But there's actually a nice tactic for white in this position. So, once again, I'll ask you to pause the video. And what's the best sequence of moves? All right. If you need more time, feel free to pause this some more. So, the following, I actually believe, yeah, it's not technically forced mate, or is it actually? Not quite, but basically if black plays the most natural reply, it is a forced mate. After rook takes d5, rook takes d5, queen e8. And the idea is you're just hunting the king. You're hunting the king, they're either going to run to f6 or h6, and it is a pretty complicated mate. But what I will say is, even if you don't work out the mate, it's worth it. You're up 2 material points still, and you have the king on the hunt. So sometimes if you're up a ton of material, like 4 or 5 points, like material points, you can just trim off a couple just to make life harder for your opponent. And actually the mate is, I believe, queen f8, yeah, queen f8, king g5, h4. And if king takes, it's queen f4, and then rook takes h7 mate. And that's like the pattern, and like, yeah, if king g4, there's like queen f3 and mate. No, there's rook h5, but then you have queen g3. Yeah, it all works itself out sometimes, and if king f6, it's very similar. Queen f7, h4, then if king takes, you go check, and then checkmate. Actually pretty fascinating how that's a forced mate. It's forced mate if they take the bishop. Or sorry, if they take the rook, which they likely would. I mean, if they don't, then like, what are they going to do? Only move to avoid mate is apparently rook f7, but you're just admitting defeat. I think even like rook d8 is pretty good, and yeah, you're just admitting defeat. Plus 14 in case that wasn't convincing enough. So rook takes d5 was not played. The move was queen e8. And then after rook f8, white still did a good job of finishing them off. Black played this move queen c7, which, you know, is a blunder, but honestly it is kind of harsh to like call it a blunder because you're already losing. But white found a nice winning move, which I think you can probably spot. So I'll give you one more chance to pause and see if you can find the move. Quite simply, the queen is unprotected, and you have what I like to call an indirect lineup with my queen attacking yours. There's only one piece in between, which is the rook, so rook takes g6. Exclamation point. And the idea is that after h takes, you just win the queen. And that's game over. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed watching this game between two 900s, just battling it out. It was very interesting, very instructive, and I think with that said, I'll see you for the next video.